Well, good morning, everybody. In today's report, I want to start off by focusing on recent rainfall. And of course, a lot of attention is being paid to Hurricane Ian, which has now been downgraded to a tropical storm. You can see here when looking back over the last 72 hours just how much rain has fallen in parts of Florida. We'll zoom in just a second. We've finally seen the deeper upper level trough that's been sitting here over the Great Lakes move on off to the northeast. It was responsible for a lot of the showers that you see here. We've had some scattered storms throughout parts of the southwest, but we are watching a system coming into the Pacific Northwest. It's going to try to get here into the northwestern plains over the next couple of days. I'll come back to that in a second. But rainfall totals in parts of Florida kind of show how inadequate my color bar is, because just over the last 72 hours, everywhere that you see this bright white is well over 10 inches. Now, I'll make some adjustments to this today and take a closer look at the totals, but I've seen some of the local reports in the 15 to 20 inch range, and there's going to be some areas in here that, of course, have seen more. The information I have at this point is that Hurricane Ian made landfall at 155 mile an hour winds, which puts it at the strongest you can be in a Category 4, 1 more mile an hour, and it would have been ranked as a Category 5. And throughout the day today, we're going to be seeing kind of the extent of the destruction as the sun rises and we got some clear weather in place. In today's report, I did link several videos of things that I was watching in terms of storm surge, total rainfall amounts, and some of the wind damage. And it's just going to provide some context for all of you on what we saw. What was most important to know about this hurricane was that if you watch the evolution of the forecast, it just continued to push farther and farther to the east. And this morning, as it sits right over in this area, we're going to be watching it kind of come out over the open Atlantic here for a moment before turning its way back toward South Carolina. So this was sunrise this morning on Ian. So the northern extent of the cloud shield has now moved over the Carolinas and parts of Georgia. But with each new forecast, it's just continued to push the heaviest rains farther to the east. But I would like to take you back to landfall. So this was Ian at its strongest right here, just as it was making landfall, and numerous reports of winds over 120 miles an hour. This is sunset last night, so this is all infrared satellite imagery. Thankfully, Ian got moving last night. Finally, things opened up, and it was able to really just scoot across Florida. And that's the best case scenario. We don't want hurricanes to slow down. They just do a tremendous amount of flooding. Now, it's not to say the Ian didn't, but at least it got moving. So this is the latest update here on where we're expecting Tropical Storm Ian to go. Right now, the National Hurricane Center, as of their 8 a.m. update, have kept it as a tropical storm, meaning that the winds will be below 74 miles an hour. But it will be coming right in here into this part of South Carolina and then stalling out over the Appalachian Mountains in North Carolina, which is where it's going to deliver a lot of rainfall. So I just want to show you the latest storm surge forecast. We're looking at 4 to 6 feet down here along the Georgia and South Carolina coast, and in North Carolina maybe 1 to 3 feet. And if we just take a look at those wind speeds, I'll just use the high-res European model. You do notice that we are expecting wind gusts in parts of North and South Carolina to be somewhere in that, possibly topping out in South Carolina in that 50 to 65 mile an hour range. And then in North Carolina, a lot of wind gusts here in the 50s. Outside of that, we're not looking at too strong of winds elsewhere around the country. We do have some stronger winds today, though, that are going to be in parts of the Central Plains. Okay, let's get a quick look at it from the high-res European. So this is this afternoon, getting into this evening. Let's get out there early to Friday morning, about Friday middays when we're expecting it to hit this part of South Carolina. You're just going to see the remnants of this move right over the Appalachian Mountains. So this is going to continue to limit the westward extent of the heaviest rains, given the latest track. And then we're going to watch through the weekend as the remnants of Ian kind of pull through the Carolinas, up into the Mid-Atlantic and parts of Virginia, delivering some locally heavy rainfall amounts. So that took you all the way out to next Tuesday here. In terms of total accumulated precipitation, this is what we're looking at here. So some of this captures the rainfall last night. This is the 0Z model run. But what we're looking at overall is widespread 2 to 5 inches from eastern Georgia through South Carolina and into North Carolina, Virginia. And then as the weekend kind of settles in, we will be seeing along the coast possibly upwards of 10 inches. And I'm going to be watching this region here in the Appalachian Mountains for potentially very heavy rainfall. Could also see some heavy rainfall along the coast. So that's kind of what we've got right now for what's left of Hurricane Ian, which will likely be one of the most expensive natural disasters in U.S. history once we finally figure out how much damage was done. Elsewhere around the country, though, that's about it. Okay, we do have this system coming into the northwest. It's going to be bringing some rain and some mountain snows here in parts of the Rockies, but it really fails to push hard into the Midwest. We'll have a lot of well, the front will have limited moisture to work with as it kind of rolls through there. So I'd like to show you that again on the high-res Europeans. So if we just play this forward, high pressure is dominating here. That's the source of a frost early this morning. I'll show you that in a second. And then the low, by the time we get into Friday evening, is now sitting broadly here on the lee side of the Rockies in Wyoming. And what you notice is it sits there and spins, almost cut off from the main flow, which is way up here in Canada. And high pressure out ahead of it over parts of Ontario is really kind of limiting the ability for this system to do two things. One, return moisture, and two, make forward progress. If you took a high pressure cell like this and put it over down here, down in the southeast, then we would have been pumping moisture into this and it would have been a powerful system with a lot of rainfall. But it's going to be limited. It's going to slowly move through early next week, delivering scattered rain through here. But overall, this isn't kind of harvest stopping rain. It's the kind of rain that comes through and delays things for several hours, but hopefully we dry back out quickly and get back to it. We are expecting next week, for more, it's almost monsoonal-like moisture that's still in the southwest. But other than that, a lot of the country does see drier conditions. So we kind of distill this down into two maps, the week 1 precipitation anomalies on the left, the week 2 on the right. One of the big things we'll be discussing in tonight's in-depth forecast is once we get through that first week of October, there are still signs that the North Pacific jet stream is going to pick up momentum and start delivering more frequent rainfall events across North America. Now, where that rainfall will be, the extent of it, I think it'll initially start with wetter conditions in the Northwest, but a lot of systems likely pulling through the U.S. And what you notice here is that in the latest week 2 forecast, that white means, well, there's probably quite a bit of ensemble spread, but it's at least not calling for consensus dry conditions. So we have this window still open for harvest, but I think those windows are going to be getting tighter as we go forward. From here, I'd like to show you the latest all hazards weather map at 7:35 this morning. And you can see that we still have these frost and freeze warnings that are still in place across the northern tier of the United States from the Great Lakes into New England. We also have the air quality alerts that are in parts of Texas. I was in San Antonio yesterday and I kind of get to experience this firsthand. And there are still red flag warnings out for Alabama and parts of Mississippi. I made a map here that shows from the 18th until yesterday where the RTMA data, okay, that's the real-time mesoanalysis data, where it picked up on low temperatures at or below 32. Now, when you look at this, we can see that there has been frost that's extended from North Dakota through Iowa and back here into parts of Wisconsin and Michigan. What I want to say about this is that this is a gridded product. It's not the individual weather stations. And so we did see patchy frost south of this, okay? But this is just a good metric to kind of see who's had a frost. And the frost that's come through here lately has been early. What we're looking at in terms of temperatures going forward, mild across the plains today and then tomorrow. But where that upper level low sits, we got some cooler air in parts of the Pacific Northwest and the interior. And this is all cloud cover cooling and rain cooling from Ian. Going into the weekend, this is Saturday's high temperatures and Sunday. A ridge opens up back in the west, so we're going to return some warm conditions there into Monday and Tuesday. More mild across a broad sector of the United States, except for over here in parts of the mid-Atlantic and the southeast, where we still have the remnants of Ian into early next week. We look out there longer term, and what I want you to see in this map is that we are not expecting, very unseasonable deep shots at cold air. I am watching around the 7th, 8th, and 9th for another frost event to possibly come into parts of the upper Midwest and Great Lakes. But overall, we don't see things connecting up with deep Arctic air at this point. So overall, we'd consider that good for harvest weather. At the end of today's report, I do talk about the situation going on in South America, including the above normal rains that are stretching through Brazil's central and eastern growing areas, and the drought that is continuing down here in Argentina, which will likely continue to be a problem. And also, I do include the latest planting progress for Mato Grosso to have a look at. They're ahead of the 5-year average. They're ahead of last year's pace, which was quite fast, fastest over the last 5 years, and in some cases even faster than the last 20 years. So we're seeing those rains really push growers into the fields quickly here. Now, it's the very beginning of this planting progress, but it's at least something that we can keep an eye on. So I'll talk to you again tonight in the in-depth report, and we'll talk to you then. Thanks.